still the undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world, Khabib the Eagle
I told you guys, everything I'm gonna change 6 October, and I do this. Alhamdulillah, thank you so much.
So if I have this opportunity before me, I must get this right, and I must not go down that path, that the cliche of the fighter that has it all and leave it all behind in ruins. And all of my successes, all of everything I've achieved will be meaningless to me.
the only, the notorious Conor McGregor!
It is an inevitable rematch. I will tell him this: you can run, but you cannot hide.
The scheduled bout between Khabib and Tony Ferguson was yet again cancelled, and looking back at it now, it seemed as if it was another one of Conor McGregor's predictions coming to life.
And then jump into that Tony Khabib fight if something happens. Why exactly do you think something's going to happen to stop that fight?
You know the way they are. It's happened multiple times, right? Scheduled 4 times in a row. Now this is the 5th.
However, even Mystic Mac wouldn't have predicted everything that has happened in 2020. As a consequence, his own prediction of a fight season in 2020 went down the drain and was left yet again out of control of his own career. Conor first had his sights set on Justin Gaethje for a bout in June.
I know you don't want to talk about opponents and names so much, but I will say one last one is Justin Gaethje.
He's on the list.
Yeah.
He is on the list. He has it coming to him. I mean, I laugh at El Justin. He's bleeding. He's a funny guy. So maybe Justin will be. Maybe I'll get through Donald and I'll have a quick turnaround against Justin. So.
Which would have been the second fight of his 2020 fight season. However, with Justin Gaethje defeating Tony Ferguson and becoming the new interim UFC lightweight champion, he was now mandatory to face Khabib Nurmagomedov, taking away the opportunity for Conor to become the mandatory challenger for Khabib's world title. With the UFC understandably not wanting to miss out on a Conor McGregor show with a fully attended crowd and ticket sales, Conor McGregor's options became very limited, and so in notorious Conor fashion, he stole the show and lit the fight world on fire with another retirement announcement. This announcement, however, is nothing new, so join me today as we take a closer look at the secret plan of Conor McGregor's return. Welcome back everyone to a Keenan KTV presentation. It has been interesting to see how hot and cold Conor McGregor can get amongst the fans. Before he knocked out Donald Cowboy Cerrone, he was an outcast of the division, but after dominating and finishing him, he was back to being the fan favorite. Fighters like Jorge Masvidal, who were very hot, ended up looking like just another pile of fighters trying to get a shot at the notorious one. Dana White, who was previously critical about Conor McGregor's run at the welterweight division, now had to eat his words with the performance Conor displayed.
You won't hear a word out of me about him not fighting 170.
And so, the doors which previously were closed on Conor reopened, and with that, the possibilities became endless. However, with the UFC not coming to terms with McGregor on how they could possibly let him fight in the current state of today, where there are no fans attending these events, which would end up being a massive loss for the company in terms of revenue. This ended up stalling and forced Conor McGregor out of the competition. And so, knowing he will be out of action for the foreseeable future, Conor announced his retirement, since in reality, he might as well act like he is, for now, because he won't be fighting in the summer of 2020. This in turn only makes his return this year even bigger, which has always been what Conor McGregor has always been about. With Justin Gaethje now out of the picture, the lightweight division automatically falls back onto Conor McGregor as the mandatory challenger, since everybody by that point has had their shot at the gold. Knowing this, Conor McGregor can take fights that are fan favorites, such as a bout with Jorge Masvidal, or finally finishing the business with Nathan Diaz. The latter of which is sounding a lot more appealing to me. Think about it, an empty arena and a rivalry that will come to an end without the fans attending. You will be able to hear every single blow and everything that will be said inside that octagon very clearly. It all makes for the perfect, dramatic end to this great rivalry. Or what about the BMF versus the Notorious one? An excellent, skilled striker versus striker matchup where we have the offensive genius Conor McGregor versus the defensive wizard in Jorge Masvidal. Both styles complementing each other. Who will in the end come out on top? Even though this fight will take place at the 170-pound division, which will make you think, how could Conor McGregor possibly earn a higher rank in the 155-pound division? Which is a good question that I will be answering right now. The future of Conor McGregor is not dependent on a fighter at this point anymore. Justin Gaethje was the fighter that Conor McGregor had to fight to clear out the line to the title, but now, with Tony and Justin out already, it's just now only about gaining momentum for Conor. Just as it was in January this year, as soon as the McGregor show was back and he looked sensational, everything started to turn back into his favor. So, assuming that the return fight will be against Nathan Diaz, which will be a very winnable fight for McGregor, Conor following that could be facing fighters like Tony Ferguson or even a Jorge Masvidal. As I said, now that the line is cleared out, it's just about getting the fights in and looking good. After a Nate Diaz fight, another opponent could be optional, since we don't really know what kind of a schedule Khabib Nurmagomedov will be on. He said that he wants to fight Justin Gaethje and then end off his career by facing GSP, which is a great vision to have, but if you're the UFC, you will be trying your best to make that rematch happen, because it really is a legendary contest that, if we will be privileged enough to see it again, will be very lucrative. But coming back to Conor McGregor having another optional opponent, Khabib Nurmagomedov has always said that if he wants to have a rematch, he must earn that right. And nobody else in the division other than Tony Ferguson could grant Conor McGregor the clear favor to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov, because we all want to see Tony and Khabib fight, even with Tony Ferguson losing. And if it so happens to be that Conor McGregor defeats Tony Ferguson in the meanwhile, we surely can't deny the fact that Conor McGregor will be next at that point.
This fight in Moscow. Yes. Let's make it happen. Don't be scared.
But looking at the Tony Ferguson versus Conor fight, it is a fight that is great in its own right. Tony is a very skilled fighter, no doubt, but at the age of 36 and getting finished by Justin Gaethje, one must question how much longer he can fight at this level effectively. Conor McGregor's style is, in my opinion, a very rough fight for Ferguson, especially early on. Ferguson's open guard, with his wild style and his courage, could lead himself pressed up against the fence, counter blows where he has the opponents walking into the shots, and Conor McGregor is the best at this. If he has Tony Ferguson walking into a counter left, well, then the lights will have no other option but to go out. When Conor McGregor happens to get those two fights in, and if he comes out on top, the Khabib vs Conor rematch will be virtually inevitable.
Oh yes. Revenge, revenge, redemption, retribution.
But prediction.
He knows
If
it.
it's gonna happen.
He knows it. Pain is the prediction.
Aside from all of this, however, in another field, another challenge still remains pretty attractive for Conor McGregor. A boxing contest with Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao being a living legend at this point and coming off of his impressive victory over top champion Keith one-time Thurman, has nothing left to prove in the sport of boxing. And him being the current world champion, he really has nothing left to prove. And for him to be able to go and compete against Conor in another crossover event only adds to his legendary run. Though Conor and Manny won't have all the theatrics in their build-up, the fight will definitely not be considered a small event.
But also, I would be open to other boxing bouts. You know, I know the Manny has been. We're actually close. We're actually close to signing Manny.
You versus Manny?
There was an offer made on that, yeah. And
What happened?
just not yet, so.
Conor McGregor, who is obsessed with challenging himself, will undoubtedly chase the opportunity to fight the Pac-Man. And with Manny Pacquiao also signing with Conor McGregor's management team, and also adding the fact that we already had Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fight, it leads me to believe that it can be done, and I believe that it will be done. However, a crossover mega fight like this with a fully attending audience, so it will most likely come by the tail end of 2021. For the remainder of this year, however, best believe that we will see Conor McGregor back. And all of this talk of Conor not fighting because fans can't attend, at some point, the UFC must accept the current situation and roll with it. Khabib Nurmagomedov is fighting under the same circumstances, and he's the second biggest star in the game. Ultimately, with Dana White trying to sell Conor McGregor's retirement, the opposite really gets proven, so that when he announces Conor McGregor's return, there will be a shock factor yet again. And in the end, I believe it will be a great smart move. But as always, it will be only time that in the end will tell the truth. As always, I have been Keenan from Keenan KTV, signing off. Later.